In our podcast, Hearing the Unheard Stories of Transformation, we discuss a variety of sensitive subjects such as suicide, suicidal ideation, self harm, abuse, and faith crisis. Viewer discretion is advised. Hi, welcome to our podcast, Hearing the Unheard Stories of Transformation, presented by Pause Wellness. I'm your host, Eric Stoffer, and we welcome once again our wonderful therapist, Jill Dickey.
Hello,
Hi, Jill.
brother of mine.
How are you?
Good.
Good. You're wanting me, so you want me to recap the last two?
Yeah, we were talking offline, and I'm going to test Eric and just see if he can remember what part one of the Sense of Self podcast was about and part two. This is letting you
I'll,
know that there are two other parts to this, those who are listening.
and I'll even back up. I'll do one even more. We'll back up
Ooh.
that this has been a series on differentiation,
Part of, yeah.
and then the first one of those is sense of self, and that's three parts. The first part is when we have a tendency to outsource our sense of self in unhealthy ways. One an example was like being one up or one down. When we're wanting affirmation, we're wanting all those A words. There were
Yeah, you
lots of
got to go
A
back and
words,
listen to the A words list, right?
lots of A
And,
words.
to be more precise, the first episode was more about early stages of development around sense of self. We're kind of trying to
Yes,
normalize it and help people notice when they're in those earlier ways of, you know, experiencing sense of self. Maybe that's confusing, but go back and listen to it. It was a good one.
yeah,
Yeah.
development of sense of self.
Okay, now what was episode number two in the series?
Episode two of sense of self is on the shadow self,
Hmm.
which is parts of ourselves that we maybe don't want out in the open or we're afraid of or ashamed of in some way. And so we'll develop coping mechanisms for not having to deal with those things, and they can result in unhealthy uh, uh, di- unhealthy views of self or unhealthy relationship dynamics and so on. How'd I do with that?
That was great. And the reason why we want to talk about that is because the idea is to build a stronger sense of the core self, and to be able to access that better, we need to deal with unintegrated material.
Yeah, meaning
Mm-hmm.
we need to have integrity with all of ourselves, not just
Mm-hmm.
parts of them.
Yes. And again, we are just touching into these topics because these are all big topics, and we're just on a one, less than an hour per episode most of the time. Hopefully that's the goal. Um, so if you want to learn more of this, we're providing resources for you to do a deeper dive.
Awesome.
So here we are at episode number 3 of the series, and this will wrap us up for Sense of Self, even though we could probably do 10 more episodes on this, but this is what we're going to be doing for now.
Awesome. So
So,
what are we going to be covering today?
okay, so today I want to talk about a framework for helping us to, discover a deeper connection to our core being, which is always there. This episode is going to kind of have a spiritual center to it because this is spiritual work in my view. And I don't mean religious, although religion could be tied to this for some people, but this is spiritual work. So if you want to, think about this through a spirituality lens, it can be really helpful for some people to do that.
Mhm.
So I think this is kind of the positive side of doing this work. The shadow work, I don't want to say shadow work is negative because it has such positive outcomes when you do it, but it's a little bit harder to talk about. This is more fun. I think we're going to have fun doing this part. And I'm excited to do it with you and just see what you have to say. So I'm going to pull from a framework that I use in therapy a lot. I'm trained in um, a modality called internal family systems, or IFS. Maybe some of you have heard about it. This is another word for talking about this is parts work, doing parts work, different parts of ourselves. And we talked about the disco ball last time, and that's kind of how I talk to people about parts. I have a part of me that does this. I have a part of me that feels like this. I have a part of me that acts like this. I have a part of me that wants ice cream, and I have a part of me that wants to be healthy. Okay, so we're talking about these different parts. But one thing that I love about Richard Schwartz's internal family systems model is that he talks a lot about this core self. And this is how he defines it. He said, a core, all of us have this, okay? This is in every single person. What's really interesting is when you dig into Richard Schwartz's story about himself, he's the developer of the IFS model for doing therapy. And he talks about when he first started, he was agnostic, didn't really believe in God and spirituality, not a very spiritual person until he started to do this work. And then he realized, wow, what I'm discovering is everyone has this really amazing core self. And the way he defines it is it's a core state of consciousness that emanates certain qualities. Another therapist that I really like to learn IFS stuff from, her name is Jenna Riemersma. She wrote a book called Altogether You, and she calls this the God image, the
Mm.
part of ourselves that is like God.
So if we go to back to Schwartz, it did it have a change in the way he perceived because it was something of a spiritual realm for him, like something you couldn't find in a petri dish?
Yeah,
And so he's like, okay,
yeah.
there's this part of our being that you can't see
Well,
in
and
the
he was
DNA. You
surprised
can't.
to see it. He was surprised to have it be revealed to him as he was working with people and clearing away these different parts. And it's this part of yourself that's the observant part of you, the part that can know that you have different parts of you.
Mhm.
And it's this thing at the core of our being that is the observer, the part that, and I want this episode to be a kind of a helpful way of helping people connect to that part that he's talking about.
That's so interesting because, as you know, with our nonprofit at Pause Wellness, this is something we believe in fundamentally.
Hmm.
Not that others can't believe other than what we believe, but there's so much data that shows that an embracing of that core sense of self, that core self,
Hmm.
actually can enhance and benefit someone's healing and the
Hmm.
way that they get better and more healthy.
And working with a mental health professional could be one way to access this core part of us that we all have, this bigger, kinder, wiser core self,
Yeah,
right?
cool.
So I love the way Richard Schwartz kind of does this. I'm sure it was kind of hard to find the language for this. And so we're going to try to capture it because it's kind of a hard thing to talk about because it's more like a feeling and an essence and a spiritual reality that's hard to talk about unless you experience it. And he came away with these different ways of kind of talking about how we know we're experiencing that core self that seem to be pretty common to people. So I want to go through them with you because I think it would be fun. Okay.
Okay.
So he calls it the 8 C's and the 5 P's. So there's 8 C words that he uses to describe the state of connecting to this core self and 5 P words. And we're going to go through them and just see like what your experience of it is, what my experience of it is, and help our listeners do this. So if you're listening to this and you really want to get into this and really experience it and think about it in a deeper way and kind of experience more of yourself in this place, it might be fun to write down these 8 words and do a little journaling about when you've experienced these things, because you and I are going to talk about when we've experienced these things. And I think it'd be cool if you're listening to do it yourself. Do what you and I, Eric, are going to do.
Okay.
Okay, so are we cool to start with the 8 C's?
Let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to give you the word, a little bit of a definition, and then you and I are going to talk about times when we've actually been in this state.
Okay.
Okay, so the
Wait,
first one he
wait. When
said,
you say we've been in this state, like we felt this for someone else or someone has shown this to
no,
us.
you're experiencing it. It's a state of experience or a state of being.
Okay. Okay. For
Okay,
me.
for you. So the first C word is curiosity. This means being open-minded and wanting to understand things instead of judging them. Okay, so think about what that feels like, and then we're going to share. So the first thing, a really simple thing that I thought of when I feel that feeling is when I get a new book about something I haven't learned about before, and I'm excited to I have this open sense of like curiosity and just like, I'm going to learn something new that I've never learned about before. And it might challenge what I already know, but this will be a cool experience and it feels like energy to me. What about you as far as curiosity?
Curiosity for me comes with um like diversity. So when I experience a new food or a new culture or a new way of that people believe. It doesn't mean that I necessarily want to adopt whatever it is, but I do get curious about why people love what they love.
I love that. I love the feeling too when I like a new client comes in the office that I've never met, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be so. I just feel this openness of like I'm going to get to know this new person who's so different than me. Kind of like trying a new food or going to a new
Yeah,
culture or traveling to a new place and just being like, wow, this is so different than what I'm used
yeah,
to. And the word I like there is the feeling of openness.
yeah.
So yeah, think about listeners when you feel curious and you're in that open-minded, non-judgmental state and just ready to have a new experience. That is core self.
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
The next word is compassion. I love this one. The way that it's defined is it's all about being kind and understanding, especially to our own feelings of hurt or sadness or someone else's. So when you're in a state of compassion or you're experiencing compassion, what does that feel like? What's the experience like? So what I experience it when I'm sitting in my therapy room and someone is pouring out their heart and talking about their pain. I never feel judgmental. I just feel compassion towards another human being. And it's a really special feeling to feel. And one of the reasons why I love my work because I get to feel the compassion of humanity with another person in such an intimate way. What about you?
Um, yeah, this is like as I've just done different personality things, and I mean, this is the word that just is so, I don't know, I just resonate with this word. I'm not saying that because I'm really great at it. Maybe I am, I don't know, but I really resonate with a sense of compassion. And I think the more I've explored this for myself, I think it comes because I've had pain in my life, and then I've had people be compassionate towards me
Mhm,
during that pain, and I feel so much love for people
mhm,
who are like that to me.
mhm,
And then when I see someone else that has pain that is similar to what I've been through, and I know how much help compassion brought me,
yeah,
I don't even think about it. It is
natural.
second nature for me to want. I mean, it's why I'm involved in pause wellness. Truly,
Mhm,
if we went through all the pain we went through with our daughter, we felt compassion from people. And when we started getting calls from other parents who had children who were going through difficult things, it was natural for us to want to
mhm.
have compassion for them. And so I just resonate with it. It's a synergy that is filled with love and kindness that I just absolutely live for.
Synergy is a great word. And I like how you highlighted more how it felt to have compassion extended to you and how
Yeah.
transformative that is. And when you are in a compassionate connection with another entity, an animal, another person, you know, you it is transformative and it is a true self state. It's a self state that's core.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So I want to highlight that one. Okay, third C word, calm. I mean, to be honest, this isn't one that I feel a lot. Probably need to cultivate more of. So this is about feeling centered and peaceful inside, even when things are rough outside. I'm more of a, if I can get my environment to be really calm, then I'll feel calm. But and that's fine. I'm not saying don't
We
ever
talked about
adjust
that
your
last
environment for calmness. I'm saying, can I find that calm center when things around me are a little chaotic or a lot chaotic? And there's a lot going on around me I can't control. Can I find that calm center? One of the ways that I felt it just recently is you mentioned my grandpuppy a few episodes ago.
Mhm.
And, I just lost my dog and she was a calming um, thing for me. And I've been missing her. And my daughter brought over her little grandpuppy and he just curled up right here by my neck and fell asleep, this little tiny fluff ball. And he was just fast asleep. And I just laid there on my couch and just felt so calm, just peaceful and calm. And like, it just felt so good. That's the last time I remember just feeling really calm, you know.
Well, this is probably for me, this one would probably open up more of something, but uh so I had back surgery a couple of months ago.
Hmm.
Um I came out of a drug-induced state from the surgery. So I get home. I mean, this is pretty serious surgery, and I get home. I get on my and I find a way to crawl in bed. And I remember it was a really painful process. And then when I finally got rested, I don't know what happened, Jill, but it was like download of emotions, and I started bawling, just sobbing, sobbing, sobbing. Have I talked about this on the podcast
No, but
before?
you just let it all out.
Oh man, I let it out and
The
I
dam
sobbed.
broke.
And like there were people bringing over meals and stuff, and Emily was like trying to not let them hear my sobs because I was sobbing so loud.
Good for
And it was
you.
a 45-minute sob fest. And when I got done, it was just
So calm.
crystal calm. It was so nice. It was amazing
I
how
love that.
and during the sob fest, I was letting everything out, like all this pain I'd been through the last number of
Not
years.
just physical, but
No, yeah, like emotional. Like it was everything was playing in my head. I was expressing my anger and my frustration, my sadness, everything. And then when it was all out, it was just so
real
serene.
nice.
And the other ways that I would express calm are a cool breeze in the shade, and
Mm-hmm.
then music does it for me.
Oh yeah.
I can have
Certain kinds
a
of music,
billion
right? Yeah.
things on my plate, but if I hear something serene and peaceful, I
Hmm.
am calm because of the
The sound
music.
of like rain does that for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But can I
ASM.
just address what you were saying, Eric? I
Yeah.
love that you shared that because I do think like it's so interesting to me because I notice this with myself and other people too, that sometimes things that happen to our body, for some reason it just unleashes all these
Yep.
things that have been held inside because our body
Yep.
keeps the score, right?
That's
And
right.
something about going through surgery and being in that vulnerable state just broke the dam for you.
Yep.
And I want to acknowledge that maybe this isn't hard for you, but it can be hard for a lot of men to just let themselves cry.
Oh, yeah.
Let yourself
Yeah.
feel your pain, let yourself feel it and let it out. And there can be a sense of calm at the end of that.
Yeah. When I was talking to my therapist about it, he was just like, cool.
Good
That's
for
really
you.
awesome.
Yeah, therapists are
He
big
was
advocates for like, just cry, baby. Just
Oh
let it
yeah,
out,
he thought that was so awesome, and he was like, of course that happened. You just had surgery, so you went through this physical trauma, and you were dealing with the narcotic experience side of it.
And it
Not
took
that
your
I'm endorsing
defenses down.
narcotic use, but
Yeah,
it really does. It was almost like new neural pathways were being formed.
good. They probably were. Okay, that's
Yeah.
a good one. Okay, number four of the eight C words is clarity. It's having a clear picture of what we want and who we are, which helps us know where we're going. That is a true self state, a core state. So for me, I often get this in prayer.
Hmm.
If I'm really just centered and kind of connecting with the divine, that's where I'll get this kind of clear picture of what I want, who I am, and where I'm headed. And it doesn't have to be a long, lengthy thing. It just kind of be prayer for me is more like meditation. Like it's more like a connecting. I don't really have that much of a structure, but that's where I feel that kind of clarity. One of the places that I feel it. What about you?
Yeah, that's interesting. I went spiritual as well for clarity. I just experienced it. So right now in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, there's this worldwide broadcast that's happening. It's known as General Conference. And I was working on my shed during the morning session of this conference. And this will sound like it was like echo chamber or, like, oh, I'm just telling myself what I want to hear kind of a thing.
Mhm.
But this is where I get clarity is sometimes I'll be feeling a lot of things about spiritual things, and and sometimes it's not all good. Sometimes it's complex and painful and difficult. And
Conflicted.
then sometimes someone will talk about it in a way, and they'll use words that have been only in my brain, and they'll put it forward in a talk, and I will connect with it so much that it's just like it's I guess maybe the best way to say it is it's like this alignment that happens. Things have been out of order, and then when that aligns with what I've been feeling, I'm not talking about confirmation bias. I'm just saying it just clarifies and it's
Hmm.
really powerful.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Yeah, I've had that happen to me before, so I can relate to that. Okay. Number five of the eight C's is courage. This means being brave enough to face fears and explore difficult feelings. So the way I describe it to clients is like, it's not the absence of fear, it's being able to face your fears and do what you need to do and what aligns with your values in the face of fear. And so when I was thinking about this, I don't know if this sounds weird, but kind of exploring ideas that are new to me and feel a little bit kind of scary, like maybe it doesn't align with the religious ideas I've had, and someone's offering me a new idea, and that can feel really scary, but I have to have more courage to kind of go where I don't want to go and explore those ideas so I can make sense of them and figure out if they align, just because I think sometimes we can be really scared of information or ideas that we're not used to.
Right.
And so for me, it sometimes takes courage to do that because I'm not sure what I'm going to know or what I'm going to discover. And that's
Yeah.
scary sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, that, I mean, but I'll get to mine, but for me, that has been about expansion.
Hmm.
It's
Usually
like
that's
truth
what it
has
ends
been,
up being,
it,
right?
yeah,
Hmm.
it really is what it is. My truth has been expanded. I've seen
Hmm.
it only in this narrow way. And then as it's added on,
Hmm.
uh, to me, for me, it works because I'm able to fit it in the framework of the spiritual knowledge that I espouse to,
Hmm.
but then it just expands. And I love
Hmm.
that. I love that when I experience that.
Yeah. Do you have, did you have another
So
one? Okay.
courage, yeah. Well, ironically, it was working with my shadow self
Oh,
in personal therapy.
yeah. Like,
Just
okay, you got to talk about these things you don't want to talk
like
about.
yeah, and
Yeah.
we did some brain spotting, and it was I mean that's heavy, scary,
Hmm.
very difficult stuff, and
But how do you feel when you do something brave? Something, like when you
yeah,
face your fear and you do it?
yeah, just like I did after the surgery, dam breaking. Right, it
Hmm.
was just
Yeah.
weight lifted off your shoulders.
Yeah. I
New
want to make
new
a distinction. I'm not necessarily talking about thrill seeking here.
right.
Okay. But, doing something hard that scares us can really help us tap into that core self.
Yeah.
And so that is a core self. That courageous part of us that pushes through scary things is core self.
Well, and this is not a thrill-seeking one, but I was really scared to learn how to ski because I didn't
Mm.
learn how to ski till I
Hmm.
was 38, and I'd always been afraid of it. I have issues with heights and those kinds of things,
Hmm.
but I learned something by working through a fear and developing, and it turned into something that I really love.
That's cool.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Now you have a new passion, a new
now I have a
hobby, a
yeah,
new
new
fun thing to
perspective
do.
on
Yeah.
life.
Exactly. Okay, perfect. Okay, so number 6. Number 6 of the eight C's is confidence. It's believing in ourselves and knowing we're worth it, even when we feel unsure. This
That
one was hard for me for some reason.
feels like an oxymoron there for a second. Like, well, is confidence, does it involve being unsure? Because
Well, I think
confidence
so
always
because I don't
seems
know
like
that you
it's
would need
sureness.
confidence unless it was a little shaky.
Hmm.
And I'm not talking about arrogance here. I think we touched into this in our last episode about cockiness, like just kind of like this bravado that you're putting forward because you have so much insecurity under there. It's not
Right.
the same.
No.
Confidence comes from a different core part of ourselves. It's not a protector part. It's not a defense. It's different. So this was a little bit hard, but I thought about first learning how to do therapy. It's something I wanted to become for a really long time as a therapist. But when I first got in a room with a real client, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing." And I had to find a deeper sense of confidence in me to be like, "Hey, you can connect with this person. You can hopefully add something helpful, and this is a learning process." And I had to find this kind of core center, confident part of myself that could push through the fear and the uncertainty of knowing how to do it because I'm learning a new skill.
Right.
What about you with the
Yeah.
confidence?
Well, and I find confidence kind of in a different way, like stuff that's familiar to me. So Emily's always getting so mad at me that I don't get nervous when I have to speak publicly.
Yeah,
And she just is like,
because
you
that
you make
scares
me
her.
sick that you can do this. And I was like, well, if you gave 5 lessons a day for 25 straight years, you know,
You could do it too.
you
Yeah.
get confident. It's not,
Uh-huh.
and it's not arrogance. It's very different than arrogance. It's
Mhm.
just you don't have the nerves have developed into calluses. And
Well, your
so,
brain's gotten used to it.
yep.
It feels like home to you. And I think that's good to just kind of, okay, if you're feeling a little shaky, maybe go do something that you do feel confident doing just to get in touch with
Feels
that again.
like home to me. I heard you use that lyric.
I
It
did?
feels like
What
home to
song is
me.
that?
You don't know that it feels like home to me?
Who sings it?
I don't know. Some movie soundtrack or something, but
Oh,
I
Eric, you know
thought you were
all the
quoting that
songs. You
song
know
because
all
it
the
feels like home
songs.
to you.
You need to send it to me. Okay.
Mhm.
Number 7. I love this one. Creativity. I think we're here to be creative, be creators. And the self is full of new ideas and ways to express ourselves in unique ways. And so when you're feeling in the flow of creativity, you're in touch with core self. So for me, I find creativity in really simple ways. There was a few that I thought of as like when I'm cooking a new dish and I want to put my own flair on what the recipe says. Another one is like I love to put together a room and make it look really nice. And I even think that working with clients and conceptualizing cases and finding ways to help people takes creativity. So those are kind of ways where I get in touch with my creative self and it feels really good. You know, that sense of flow when you're in the creative process. What about you?
Yeah, I think we were talking about this on the last episode with shadow self, but when you deal with the shadow self, it like unlocks new
Capacities and
levels.
creativities you didn't know
Yeah,
you had.
new
Yeah.
potential. And that is truly what has happened to me. Like on one side, it looks like I'm just trying to fill my schedule with too much, but on the other side, it's like I feel this energy I've never felt before
Hmm.
to just do new things and try new things and
Mm,
get involved in new ways.
I love that.
Like
So,
I just feel like, oh, I've been through this pain. What can I
hmm
do? Like, how
hmm
can I
Yep.
just, it's like you've something like there's new distance on the
Fresh
horizon or something.
energy. Yeah. New ideas, new ways of wanting to create and make the world better. Yeah. I
Yep.
think that's coming from people's core self
Yeah.
in whatever way you define that. Okay. The last of the 8 C's is this is another one of my favorites is connectedness. It's feeling connected, true connection to ourselves, to others, to animals, to nature, to the world around us, feeling really connected in like oneness with other things. And I think that that is actually our true state, is that we're all connected in this beautiful connecting energy that is we're all part of each other and the world. And when you get to really sense that in a certain way, you're in core self, you're in that deeper self state. And so I thought about it like um, being out in beautiful nature. Like we went hiking up in Glacier National Park this summer, and we went to some of the most beautiful. We looked at some of the most beautiful vistas that there are to be seen at the top of high mountains that we'd hiked, and these lakes and these mountain scenes and mountain goats around us, and there's just this feeling of connectedness to everything out in nature. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. I feel a lot of connectedness when there's some good food involved.
Mm.
And it's not the
Connected
food.
to pleasure.
Yeah, well, and it's not just the food. I'm talking about like when there's really good food and there's good people around.
Mm,
I just feel that social connectedness and I just love that. So like when we can get together with friends or with family
mhm,
and we have a meal together, I like that connectedness. I've also known the antithesis of this. So when I'm feeling contention with someone,
mm,
man, I just want to pull away. Like I don't want to, I'm not talking about differentiation pull away. I mean,
Mm-mm. Like, I got to get out of here and
yeah,
avoid
I
this
just don't
feeling.
want to be around this. And so I just want to back off and so
You know, and sometimes that might be okay to be like, this is really contentious and we're not solving anything here. And
right.
maybe a wiser thing is to kind of step out. But sometimes there's conflict that you're experiencing that's really uncomfortable that you kind of probably need to stay in and work
Yeah.
through.
Yeah, I'm talking
Yeah.
about flight mode,
Yeah. Not
not
so.
wise.
I think core self is it's gonna take that courage and that clarity and that
Yeah.
calmness to stay in the conflict and work through it. That's why having this more solid core self and being able to get into that and feel it and know what it is a differentiation skill.
Yeah.
Because people who are differentiated at higher levels can do conflict better because conflict is just part of being human and being in connection with yourself and other people. And so having a sense of this core self can help you stay in conflict and be present
Right.
when parts of you want you to run because it
Yep.
feels scary, you know. You gotta have courage to stay there, you know. And again, sometimes it's just this is really not helping. I need to just
Yeah.
step
Yeah.
outside, you know,
Yeah.
because it's just contention. It's not productive conflict. Yeah.
I don't like when you and I have an argument.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to bring that up.
How we know
Sometimes
we
we're
reach a
not in
bad
core self,
place when we
although
keep saying the same thing over and over and over and over again.
exactly. It's like if I just say it in this little bit of a different way, Eric's going to get it, and then you're going to say it in a little bit different
I'll be
way.
louder. I'll be more fierce in
Let
the
me
way I
rephrase
express
this
it.
in the 10th right way, you know? But I do think there's been times where we've had conversations that there's been conflict in it, but
For
it's been
sure. But
productive
then growth.
conversation, and we're probably more in true self state there.
Yep.
So it's just good awareness. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So are you ready to move? That was the 8 C's.
And
So
let's
if you're
go to the
following
five
along,
P's.
yeah. If you're following along, hopefully you've been able to find some of those 8 C's experiences that line up. So the 5 P's, I think when people do IFS, they use these less often, but I think they're worth a look. All right. So the first of the 5 P words that we're going to explore is presence. Being present and aware of what's happening inside us and around us without getting overwhelmed. Whoa. Kind of being in the
This is
eye of the
where,
storm and just being aware.
yeah, mindfulness really has been kind of a kitschy thing lately, hasn't it? It's really kind of
Important.
brought forward as to why, because there's so many things we get involved in, and multitasking has become a skill
Yeah.
that everyone has because of technology and those kinds of things, and what gets sacrificed at that is being present.
Well, we're constantly distracted, right?
Yep.
So one of the I think for me, because I'm a busy person, maybe I should cut back on some of that now that I'm thinking about it. But distractions are easy. There's always something at the tip of your fingers to be distracting. And so I think we have to be more intentional about cultivating the ability to be present.
Mhm.
And I think meditation is a really good way to do it. So when I do meditation, some of my favorite meditations, I can get in touch with that presence and get in touch with what that feels like. Another thing that I'll do sometimes when I'm really agitated and not present, I'll do a task like the dishes or something, and I'll just try to work to keep my mind on the task and just what does the water feel like? And, without wandering off somewhere and just trying to stay present in the task that I'm doing and being really focused on the task without distraction.
So
What about you?
how do you tell the difference between that and your compulsion to do that?
It's a different energy.
Oh, is it?
If I'm doing just to do a task, I'm very task oriented. I'm like thinking about other things and getting to the next thing. But if I'm doing it as like a mindfulness exercise, I'm just staying really present. I'm not rushing. I'm not thinking about the next thing. I'm just paying attention to the thing I'm doing in the moment that I'm doing it,
That's
which
great.
is a good practice. What about you with presence?
Um, yeah, I think I have to eliminate distractions in order to be more present. And
Hmm.
when I do, like Emily and I try to help each other with this. So like the phones can be a distraction, and when our children come in the room, we don't want to be on a phone. And so
Hmm.
it's funny because as soon as we see a kid come in the room, we'll put the phone down and we want them to know that we're listening to them or focused. We're not perfect at this, but it's definitely something that
I like this because you're
we're working
highlighting
on.
being present with another person
Yep.
and what that feels like. That's true self, to be really present with another human being
Yeah.
is a core self state. Okay, the second 5P is perspective. Seeing things from a bigger view beyond just how we feel right now or what's going on right now, kind of stepping back and getting a broader view, wider perspective. I thought about that and I thought, oh, what gives me a broader perspective? There's lots of things, but the first thing that came to mind for me was laying on the top of a houseboat at Lake Powell and staring at a sky full of stars, just packed with stars, and just thinking about the universe.
You're a sky full of
Full of
stars.
stars. I know that one. I know that song.
See, you're always
Yeah.
bringing in some
And
lyrics.
so, that's one of it gives me perspective to contemplate the universe in a broader view than just my current little life that's right in front of me. And I like doing that. I like looking up into the sky and contemplating that.
Hmm.
What about you?
Um, I really love the concept of magnanimity, being magnanimous.
Mm,
And it takes objectivity to be magnanimous, right? There's this quote I love that talks about how rather than argue our points, we should try to understand the context where the person is coming from that is arguing the point
mm,
against ours.
hmm
It doesn't mean we're going to come to an agreement with the individual, but we can try to understand their context better, and we'll be able to maintain the relationship rather than feel like, oh, we'll never be able to get agree with each other, so we don't belong with each other or
So you're
something like
talking
that.
more about just working to broaden your perspective another person's experience that's different than
Yes, I
yours.
love to do that. And I
Hmm
think that the more I can do that, the more I have in my arsenal for, you know, for human connection.
hmm
And so I don't know if that's the same thing as what you're
Yeah,
identifying, but
seeing from a bigger view than how you just feel right now, you can definitely get that from
yeah.
connecting with another person's perspective. So yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, if someone doesn't believe the way I believe religiously, I want to know, okay, what do we see eye to eye on in our different religions? Or no, it's good. This could be an agnostic. It doesn't have to be someone who believes in God.
Hmm
But what do we have in common, and what are our differences, and why are we different?
hmm
And again, this goes back to the concept of diversity, right? So,
hmm
um,
Yeah, I think that's
diverse
great.
oneness is not sameness.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. Third of the 5Ps is patience. Oh boy, this one's a tough one for me. So
I don't
being
have
okay with
this one.
taking things slowly and not rushing our healing journey or not rushing our experience.
I don't have
Ugh,
time to talk about this one, Jill.
yeah, I don't either enough any patience for the first thing that came to mind, and it was I literally had to ponder on this for a while because I don't think I'm a very patient person generally, but learning to play a piano piece, that's kind of hard. I mean, I really want to learn it, and I've got to be patient with the process of learning something I'm not familiar with and I don't know how to do, and I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, and so I just need to slow it down. Sometimes I have to play the same three measures over and over and over again and have patience with the process of learning something new. So that's where I thought about it. And that part of my core self that can slow me down and be present and help me be patient with the process is what I'm talking about. What about you?
Um, I know when someone is making me feel like they're impatient with me because of how I, this sounds like pointing fingers, but when someone is impatient with me because they're going to look bad in front of someone else,
Mm,
so they'll be impatient with me. I don't like that feeling, and so if I'm doing that to someone else, I try to be aware of that, and I've got to get better at it because I know that it happens.
hmm
So like I'm trying to keep on. We've talked about the reflected sense of self, or how we're looking to other people. And if someone's getting in the way of me looking good in front of someone else, then I'm going to be impatient with them.
mm.
I don't like that. I've got it. I don't like it when it happens to me, and I've got it, and I'm trying to be more aware of when I do that to other people.
And so you're saying I need to access more core self, patient core self to be patient with other people who might
Yeah,
be
well, the reason
interfering
why I'm
with,
being impatient is because I'm not confident in my core self, right?
right?
Because
Right. A lot of
it's
times that's where impatience comes from is like,
that's
you're
right.
not making me look good,
That's
kiddo,
right. You're
wife,
getting in the way
friend,
of my looking good,
boss.
so you're my
Like, back
problem.
up. My image is getting messed with, right? And be more
That's
patient
right.
with other people if they're doing
Whereas
that
if
and
I
be
was
more
just more
aware that you're
confident
doing
in
that.
who I am and not needing that reassurance through how I'm viewed by other people, then I wouldn't be impatient with this
Hmm.
other person.
Right. Very good. Okay. And the number four of the five P's is persistence. The ability to keep going even when things get tough because we know down deep in our core it'll be worth it. Because it's kind of helping us become who we're trying to become and who we're trying to create in a good way, in a healthy way. Okay. And so when I thought about persistence, it's when I first started school. I was the oldest one in my cohort going back to school. And I felt really overwhelmed in the first couple weeks of school. I was like, I can't do this. I'm too old for this. I can't keep up with this. I'm not smart enough for this. And I had to find that core part of me that's like, no, persist. You can do it. Push through this because you're in the creative process of becoming like fulfilling a dream, fulfilling something that you care about in a way that you really care about. And so that's persistence for me. What about you?
Same. Just with this nonprofit, Pause Wellness, I mean, starting a nonprofit in the mental health field is not an easy thing to do. And there have been so many crossroads where it's been like, oh man, this is so difficult. Are we ever going to figure this out?
Hmm.
And thankfully, we have a great team of people who are encouraging, and it helps with persistence. But
Hmm.
I also don't feel I don't, and some of part of this might be a little bit obsessive compulsive. Like I don't like to leave things undone,
Hmm.
so I've got to have it finalized. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think you can be careful with persistence because sometimes we have this anxious persistence,
mhm,
like I'm not enough if I don't accomplish this.
yep,
Because sometimes it can be wise to know when to let go of things that aren't good for us, even though, we just have this anxious persistence. But this is not anxious persistence. This is
right,
tapping into a more solid core self strength. So be
yeah,
careful when with some of these, it's like, oh, there's anxious reasons for doing this, anxious parts that push us to never ever let go. But this is more core self. It's more centered. It's more calm. It's more, you know, inside from a good place.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think like therapy has done this.
Yeah.
Therapy has helped me to go, hey, back to patience, be patient with this process. And as you're patient, it develops into persistence.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Last one. And this is a fun one, playfulness. And, I think this is a core part of me that I need to develop more because I'm more of a worker than a player. But this doesn't necessarily mean partying or, recreating, just having a spirit of playfulness. It's approaching life with a light-hearted attitude and finding joy in exploring the world and ourselves. Um, I notice myself in kind of a playful feeling when I'm swimming. Feel like an otter
Mhm.
or something, just like really free with that weightless feeling and just being able to swim and play in the water. That gives me a sense of playfulness. What
Mhm.
about you?
Um, yeah, I think I like to joke with my kids a lot and tease,
Hmm.
healthy teasing, not unhealthy, but I like to tease. I like to joke with Emily a lot,
Hmm.
flirting.
Hmm.
I like to
Yeah, that's
flirt with
that's
Emily.
playful and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the things when I work with couples who are going through a lot of stress and they're dealing with a lot of things that I try to help them find playfulness in their relationship, bringing more of the joy and the light back in when it's been so heavy, because it's an important part of core self to
Yeah,
find that
Emily,
playful place.
with all the heaviness that we've
Mhm.
experienced, it's been nice to, when I'm really down, Emily can be strong and even playful
Mhm.
and kind of cut the tension. a little bit
Hmm.
with some humor
Hmm.
and vice versa.
Hmm.
And it's not the kind where we can't be serious.
Hmm.
So we're so uncomfortable with seriousness that we
But
just
just
joke
throw
about
some lighthearted, like joking in there when
yeah,
things are heavy. Yeah. And this can also be, you gotta be careful with this one because if taken too far, we can be playing all the time to avoid stuff we need to look at or make
yeah,
jokes when someone's trying to talk about something serious. And that's not what I'm talking about here. This is a
yeah,
core center sense of playfulness.
yeah,
Okay,
agreed. And I think we have a pretty healthy dose of that.
good. Okay, so there's the 8 C's and the 5 P's. And if you're journaling this, it can be a really fun exercise just to kind of think through these core self states. And I think getting more familiar with when we're experiencing these things and more aware can help us build that positive core self and get more in touch with what's there. Because remember, Richard Schwartz is teaching us, and I believe this is true, and it's truthfulness across the board, that these are things that are already in us. We just need to access them more. So there's your way of experiencing a solid core self in
So
some.
if our listeners are listening, if they were to just kind of go through, um, this could help them have a better relationship with themselves by
Yeah, sure.
identifying the core parts of themselves.
Which brings me to a couple questions that you can ask yourself. So here's some questions as you're doing this exploration. If you are, doing this with us, along with us, notice which of these are most present for you or which ones come easiest to you. That was easy for me to notice. Oh, that's easy. And then other ones, pay attention to the ones that are a little bit more challenging that maybe you need to focus on getting in touch with more. Um, Pay attention to what you do that promotes each one of these things. And maybe you can incorporate some of those things into your life. Um, do you find that some are present when you're with certain people or in particular situations? Notice the context that this self state comes up for you. Um, which are more active when you're thinking, feeling, or doing? I think that's an interesting question.
Mm.
And then the last one I thought of, is there any one of these qualities that you would like to develop or get to know more?
Hmm. Okay, so let me ask you a question.
Hmm.
So let's say I have a loved one who does not feel like they really know who they are.
Hmm.
Not that they, don't know who they are, but like they don't
No, they
they
really might
haven't
not.
and they might not, right?
Hmm.
But are constantly expressing like, I've lost myself so much in these things, these selfless things of my
Expectations, but
life or expectations that I haven't really known who I am or what I love or what I want. Um, so this activity that we've just done by going through all those things, can it help that person do that?
hmm I think it's one way to access more of you, right? I want to just say something about that. It's a good question because it happens a lot with clients, like what are you, I'll ask them, which would seemingly seem like a easy question, but I'll say something like, what are some of your desires? What are some of the things you really want?
Hmm.
What brings you pleasure? And they'll be like, I don't actually know.
See,
And
I
I
think
believe
those,
them, right?
yeah,
Because what they've done is, maybe I call it de-selfing. They've de-selfed quite a bit in order to stay in connection because of expectations. This happens a
yeah,
lot with women, especially
yeah.
in
Well,
my.
it's a woman I was talking about.
Okay, yeah,
So,
that happens a lot because there's a lot of like, this is how you're a good woman, especially in like religious, like conservative Christian culture,
yeah,
expectations of what they're supposed to be. And I'm not saying this isn't true for men too, but I see it mostly with women because to be a good woman is to not care about yourself and to be selfless and to just give and nurture. And you kind of de-self quite a bit when that's how you get validation. And
yeah,
so when you ask a woman, what is it that you really want to cultivate or be, or what do you really desire? They're like, can I reference my own desires? I thought I was supposed to reference everybody else's, and they really don't know. And so, yeah, it's a good idea to go exploring. Give yourself permission to explore and then go exploring. And one of the ways could be looking at this core self. I wish I had access to this in my head, but I don't. There's a TED Talk, and I'm trying to think of what it is. Maybe we can link it, but it was about like 5 questions to help you find you or something like that. And it was this guy that had this really quick way or, helpful framework for helping people find themselves when they don't know.
Yeah.
And, we could even do a whole podcast on that, honestly.
Well, in our day, I think so many, of what people do is so broadcast that we often might think that what we do is who we are.
Yeah.
And the great thing about this exercise that we've done in this podcast is it's not so much about what you do, it's about your values and that true sense of
Yes.
self, and which may lead to what you do,
Yeah. What you do
which
could be an
is
extension of that
could be
core
an
self,
extension,
right?
but it's okay if you can identify those core principles of who you are.
Hmm.
That's going to matter more than just picking up a new hobby and hoping it might fit.
Yeah. I think one of the things we talked about doing as a whole podcast episode was a values exploration. And I think
Yes.
that can be really helpful for helping people figure out who they are and what they want to become.
Yep. Let's do that.
So that would be a good one. And there's good ways of thinking about how to explore your values and then how to anchor into them as more direction in your life. And it can really help people open up and be like, these are the things I value, and these are the things I can choose to do that are in line with those values. It really can help with congruency. So I just think this series has been really fun to explore
Yeah,
because I don't think we
me
can
too.
overstate how helpful and important it can be to find core self and to really anchor into core self. And hopefully, what we've discussed in these last 3 episodes have been helpful for people in doing that challenging and exciting work
Yeah.
of
Well, it has
finding
been for
self.
me, so I appreciate it. Thank you,
Mhm.
Jill.
You're welcome. I'm going to, of course, leave you with a couple resources because that's what I
Yep.
like to do. Um, I want to encourage everybody to do the rain meditation. You can look it up on YouTube or you can get it on Audible for like, I think it's free, or maybe Spotify for free. But rain r.a.i.n. And it's a meditation that helps you find self and self-compassion and really kind of like helps you get to that deeper part of you. It's Tara Brock, who developed it, and it's just a beautiful meditation. So if you really want to do something cool to get in touch with this, the rain meditation is a good one. And then if you liked learning about parts work, the internal family systems model by Richard Schwartz, my 2 favorite books about the IFS model are No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz and Altogether You by Jenna Riemersma. And she takes more of a Christian religious view on IFS parts work. So if you're interested in looking at parts work and that it can be a beautiful model for helping you understand the self and do shadow work and find that core, those are some good books that you could look into.
I would add two resources as well.
Okay.
Um, Inside Out by Pixar and Inside Out 2 by
Yes.
Pixar, also
Beautiful.
based on parts work, right?
It is. I think they did a great job of kind of touching into the idea of parts. I
Mhm.
mean, anxiety was just so cute in part 2. She's just so cute. I think they just did that so perfectly. And it's amazing how much those movies get brought up in my sessions with people. Just it's meant for kids, and teens and stuff, but adults really resonate with these ideas. So,
We all need those principles.
yep. So great resources to remind everyone. Go watch Inside Out. Get some popcorn, kick back with the fam, watch them, have a good discussion.
If you've got a teenager that's struggling, watch with them.
Yeah.
They can, and then have a conversation about what they
Yep.
learned.
I really love that Pixar did this. I think
Yep,
it's been good.
me too.
Okay, Eric, that wraps up our series on sense of
Sense of
self.
self.
Yeah, it's been
So is
fun.
there more with differentiation that we go back to now
Um,
after sense of
okay,
self?
let's see. Hold on. Do you mind if I just pull out?
No, go ahead.
Okay, because I remember there's the 4 skills we did. So the first skill is that sense of self, right? Which we just talked about for 3 sessions. So I think we're good there. Then we did the emotional regulation, which is skill number 2. Number 3, I think, goes along right with emotional regulation and emotional intelligence is the ability to control your own reactivity.
Mm.
Okay. And I don't know if you want to do a whole episode on that, but I think it kind of goes along with the emotional regulation and self-soothing. And then number four is to tolerate discomfort for growth. I mean, I kind of feel like we covered that,
Yeah. Yeah.
that doing shadow work is to tolerate
Yep.
discomfort, and doing relational work with people, learning about yourself. There's going to be discomfort there.
Hmm.
So, you know,
So maybe we do the
part of
values work
differentiation is
next.
tolerating the discomfort of doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're trying to emotionally regulate, you're going to be learning to tolerate difficult emotions in a different way. You're going to be tolerating the discomfort of looking at parts of yourself that aren't fun to look at,
Do
you
you think
know?
that's why so many people avoid therapy and
Oh, yeah.
stigmatize it is because you just think, well, either I'm supposed to be able to know how to do this naturally, because if I acknowledge that I can't, then I'm a failure.
Uh-huh.
Or two, it just hurts to do the work anyway.
Absolutely. And I think, it's very human we talked about this in the emotional regulation episode, is like, we're going to naturally avoid things that make us feel uncomfortable and seek things that bring us pleasure and comfort. That's just how human beings are wired. And so a lot of times people come in and they'll ask me to help them solve a problem. I've got this big problem, and is there a way that you can help me solve this without being uncomfortable? I don't want to be uncomfortable. I just want to
Can you
solve.
just
And I'm
give me
like,
a pill?
oh yeah, because I think we're in the you might be in the wrong room, because the way I understand human growth is that we have to move through discomfort in order to grow. And we've got to learn to tolerate it better, because that's what helps us grow. And so I can help you through this, but not without discomfort.
The only
And
way
so
out is through,
the only way out is through. Unfortunately, that is the truth.
unfortunately.
But if you're willing to go through, there's a lot of good on the other side. I think why therapy can be so good is because oftentimes, especially when there's a lot of material there and we're struggling with a lot of deep things, we need support. We need support.
There's that great quote from that Supreme Court justice. I wouldn't give a fig for simplicity on this side of complexity, but I would give my life for the simplicity that comes on the far side of complexity.
Yep. Yep. That's some deep
That's therapy.
wisdom right there. And that is
Yeah.
therapy. But it can be, I don't want people to get scared, because it can be a really beautiful
Yep.
process. And yes, there will be discomfort in it, but there's really good stuff in that searching and that learning and that process of growth. So,
Just use my strategy. Beat them to the punch. Hey, I really want to get better. I'm already really bad at this. How can I get
well,
better?
I mean, there's some good parts of that. It's like, hey, listen, I know what some of my weaknesses are, but I guarantee when you go to therapy, you're going to see stuff you didn't know was there.
Yep.
So, that's good. That's good. And when people have the courage to do it, it really produces a lot of freedom and beauty in their lives. And it's
Yeah.
really a privilege to witness people doing it, doing that hard work.
Awesome.
So thanks, Eric. This was fun.
Thank you. Maybe we'll do values on the next one then.
Okay, let's plan on it. I think values exploration can be really helpful.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice job, Jill. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Yep. We'll see you later.